This is KGW News at 11.
And let's get first to the big developments surrounding the Portland Thorns. Fans tonight held a boycott while players protested. Good evening, I'm Laurel Porter. Thanks for joining us. That all comes just hours after the Thorns general manager was placed on leave. Orlando Sanchez has the latest from Providence Park.
This was not business as usual. The NWSL Players Association posting that ahead of tonight's matches. This, the first Portland Thorns match since the Athletics story was published about a week ago. No popcorn, no beer, no merchandise. The Rose City Riveters and Timbers Army boycotting the purchase of those items at Providence Park before the Thorns took on the Houston Dash.
I really believe in their voice and not being silenced, and we're here to show our support.
It was in light of former Thorns Monashim and Sinead Farley coming forward with allegations of sexual coercion and harassment against former Thorns coach Paul Riley. The report said in 2015, Shim told the Thorns front office she was harassed by Riley. Though Riley was fired, the allegations were kept under wraps. The players released a statement less than an hour before kickoff, laying out a list of demands, from increased accountability and transparency in the front office to more diversity within the club's board of executives. At the top of the list, putting general manager Gavin Wilkinson on leave until investigations are complete. Within minutes, that happened. Wilkinson was put on administrative leave from Thorns duties. No more silence. An emotionally charged night on the pitch.
This has been a really dark and heavy week for everyone in the league, fans, players, coaching staffs. It's just been a lot.
6 minutes into the match, teams league-wide joined in solidarity at midfield to recognize the 6 years it took for those players to be heard. The Portland Thorns and Houston Dash battled for 90-plus minutes, playing the game they love. But tonight wasn't about soccer, but the well-being of the players and making sure something like this never happens again.
There needs to be big structural changes within the league to protect these players, because we're vulnerable without a voice. We're vulnerable without the financial means to protect ourselves. And that is something that cannot continue.
Megan Klingenberg adding after the match that the goal tonight was to go out there and enjoy the match and play like they were little kids again. They lost 3-2, and they'll play again on Sunday. Reporting from Providence Park, Orlando Sanchez, KGW Sports.
Tonight, Sinead Farley tweeted she was absolutely blown away by the show of support from fans and players. She said, "My heart goes out to every single player, former and current, who's lived through this culture of silence. We are demanding change, and we are not going away." New tonight, a man who spent nearly 2 decades on death row in Oregon has a chance for freedom. The Oregon Court of Appeals ordered a new trial in his case. Catherine Cook looks at the years-long effort to clear his name.
It's an incredible feeling. I mean, case is once in a lifetime. So he's been fighting this case for, more than 20 years.
Attorney Ryan O'Connor is thrilled for his client, Jesse Lee Johnson. In 2004, Johnson was convicted and sentenced to death in the 1998 murder of Harriet Thompson. The mother of 5 was found stabbed to death in her Salem apartment. While Johnson admitted he'd been to Thompson's home before, he always maintained his innocence. And on Wednesday, the Oregon Court of Appeals reversed his murder conviction and ordered a retrial.
I had a chance to talk with him earlier today, but he was very happy, very excited, and looking forward to hopefully being released from prison.
The appeals court based their decision on a key witness account from a woman named Patricia Hubbard. At the time of the murder, she lived across the street from Thompson. Hubbard says she heard screams and saw a white man with long hair running from the scene. Johnson showed up later. But Johnson's original defense team never interviewed Hubbard. Neither did police.
It was the case that kept us up at night. We all believed that Jesse Johnson was just the wrong guy.
Eric Mason is a private legal investigator. He's been working on this case for years, along with the Oregon Innocence Project. He tracked down Patricia Hubbard and got her witness account to the appeals court.
The first thing that jumps out at you is you have an African-American client on death row, and you know, wow, something's wrong here. And that is the person that obviously was running from the house that morning is not the same race as the person that's been accused and convicted.
Reached by phone, Patricia Hubbard told us, quote, "I'm excited for Jesse. As long as fairness comes to the gentleman that it needs to go to, that's what's important to me." Patricia's old roommate, Teresa, still lives in the same home. She's anxious to see what happens.
20 years. Yeah, that's a long time to take from somebody's life if they are truly innocent.
Exactly what happens next is unclear. Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum could appeal the ruling to the state Supreme Court. A spokesperson for Rosenblum tells KGW they haven't decided if they'll seek further review or not. Beyond that, O'Connor says the Marion County DA could order a new trial or even dismiss charges.
Hopeful that we can see this all the way through to him actually being released from prison and being given his liberty back.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Tonight we're hearing how one family's lives have been forever changed by gun violence in Portland. Their loved one was shot in the back while in a restaurant. Jacob Vasquez died on Friday, September 24th, around 2 a.m. He had just walked into the Silver Dollar Pizza at Northwest 21st and Gleason when he was shot. 2 others were injured. Police don't believe Vasquez was the intended target. His sister says Jacob was the youngest of 8. He moved to Portland with his partner nearly 2 years ago, and they say he loved his life here. He worked as a server at McMiniman's Blue Moon, just across the street from where he was shot.
Yesterday would have been his 35th birthday. And it's just tragic that someone so young, so full of life that was left ahead of him would be taken by senseless gun violence.
The family wants justice for Jacob and is calling on the suspect who got away to turn themselves in. If you have any information that can help, call Portland Police. The Mount Scott Arleta neighborhood has seen a lot of gun violence this year. The community met virtually tonight to talk about possible solutions. Their goal is to try out several different ideas to see what has the biggest impact on crime in the area. Already, working with the city, they've made several streets local access only, hoping to cut down on the speeding that often comes along with more serious crimes. The first traffic barrels went up last Friday. More went up this week. At least one neighbor said she is seeing a difference.
We've all seen quite a bit of an improvement in terms of speeding and racing. We were often woken by the sounds of revving vehicles right on, at the corner of our street at 1 a.m. with donuts and things like that.
The neighbors are also working with businesses to add more surveillance and lights, and they're getting involved with outreach projects serving at-risk youth. Long term, they want to turn some of the highest crime spots into community spaces. Meanwhile, tonight, the city has suffered a setback with its latest solution to the homeless crisis. One of the 3 homeless villages planned has been nixed. As Pat Doris explains, the location, it turns out, is in a floodplain.
When the city recently announced the locations of 3 homeless villages it would build on public land by the end of the year, this lot near the Springwater Corridor, not far from Precision Cast Parts, was on the list. But we wonder if anyone actually visited the place, because if they did, they somehow missed that the lot sits at the bottom of a large hill and that there are wetlands all around it. It's so wet, there's a sign asking people not to feed the ducks. The city now admits no one checked to see if the lot sits in a floodplain. It does, and now it's off the list for the homeless village. Neighbors, including Stephen Johnson, could not believe the site was picked in the first place.
I've worked in underwriting for commercial projects for a while now, and flood searches is kind of one of the first things you want to do. They're not expensive, and the FEMA records are really clear on where there are floodplains. But just looking at where they'd drawn the box on the map, I thought, well, isn't about half of that underwater?
Yes, turns out that's about right. But neighbors say the location is not the only thing the city bungled. The city also failed to communicate.
Probably the most upsetting thing was just that there was no effort at communicating to the neighborhood about it, that there was no buy-in, that they didn't brace me for it or tell me if it had some kind of special mission or some kind of a useful thing like that.
Last week, when announcing the locations for the villages, City Commissioner Dan Ryan, who is in charge of all this, spoke boldly about the plan.
First of all, you should know this about me. I like to set goals. I like to set ambitious goals. And I like to be held accountable to do all we can to achieve them.
Apparently, that does not include being held accountable on camera when there are mistakes. I wanted to talk with him today about the Springwater location, but was told he's not available today or any day for the rest of the week. His office instead offered a written statement. It says he's disappointed and moving on with the project. In the meantime, some question whether it matters that the lot is in a floodplain. Take a drive, as I did, along Southeast Foster past 112th in the Johnson Creek floodplain, and you'll see more than a few vehicles used by the homeless living there. The floodplain issue is likely a minor embarrassment in the big scope of things, but it does feed the feeling of some in Portland, including cyclist Richard Younts, who often rides in the Springwater area. The feeling is that the city has lost its way and is now stumbling through the dark.
The whole issue of all these camps and where to put them and how to fund it and what to do, I don't think it's ever going to get resolved.
That was Pat Doris reporting. We have an update tonight. A Portland man who lost his business in that massive fire. A lot of you saw the smoke yesterday in Southeast Portland. He started a fundraiser, and he's not raising the money for himself, but instead for the artisans who had inventory, tools, and other supplies in his store called Really Good Stuff. The GoFundMe has a goal of raising $25,000, and it's already gotten more than $16,000. The fire destroyed the store along with 3 others on Southeast 11th Avenue and Hawthorne Boulevard. COVID-19 weekly testing in Portland schools is underway or in the process of rolling out, and district officials are asking for patience. The first school to roll out the testing program was Whitman Elementary last Friday. But in a district with nearly 50,000 students at more than 80 schools, district officials say they're working as fast as they can to get the weekly testing program fully up and running.
Some of our schools just lack some of the staff power to be able to put in the data, get the forms out to students. The distribution of the test kits, the collection of the test kits.
As a result, PPS says district office staff and administrators have had to step out of their usual roles and, for part of their day, step in to help more than 30 schools. So far, she says more than 5,000 students have signed up for the testing, with over 50 schools now enrolled in the weekly COVID-19 testing program.